I said there's no collusion with the president. I never said there was no collusion with his campaign.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So that is a change. That's a huge change in the rhetoric that's coming out of the White House. And what I want to ask John Decker is, doesn't that put the president in a tough position if you're admitting that there might be? So he's not admitting that there might be. He's simply saying that I'm not saying there isn't, but it almost alludes that there might be collusion with Manafort or whatever. But if Mueller has information that the president had knowledge, wouldn't that ultimately implicate the president if he had knowledge of what Mueller was doing or what Manafort was doing? So I kind of want to ask him that question. But, sometimes I think Giuliani is brilliant in the way that he acts like he's not brilliant. Other times I wonder if he tends to step in it a little bit. So we'll see. The weather, I want to give you an update on where we are at, and I want to talk to Rachel Witter coming up at the bottom of the hour. The winter storm that they're talking about this weekend, and, this has been the big talk for everybody. I don't think it's going to happen. Do you think it's going to happen? I don't think it's going to happen. It looks like it'll be a bit snowy tomorrow, especially in the morning, but not in terms of anything really all that bad. But then Saturday and Sunday is where we're talking about this storm. So what does it all mean? Our area is looking at they're predicting at this point, a storm that will bring 9 to 20 inches of snow between Saturday and Sunday. It is now a winter storm watch that has been issued by the National Weather Service. Mm-hmm. Now, a watch means the conditions are right for this to happen. It could change. It might not hit us. It would then go to a winter storm warning. This is all obvious for all of us. We deal with it. But and then the winds are expected to get into it on Sunday, so it could make things really pretty nasty. So is it going to happen? Well, the last time they predicted for us, what did they say? Started out looking like it was going to be a storm, and then it was 3 to 5 inches, and we got maybe a dusting here. But other parts of the area got hit pretty hard. Tug Hill got about a foot of snow. Madison County got hit pretty well. But this one looks like the closer you are to here and to Syracuse, it's about 9 to 20 inches. The further east you go, they're saying maybe up to 6 to 9 inches if the storm hits the way they believe it's going to hit. But Saturday afternoon, the winter storm watch goes into effect, and it continues until Sunday night. So this weekend's travel could be a little bit on the nasty side. All right, what else do we want to talk about? Nexus Center. We're going to get into that a little bit today, which we'll explain what it is. And I think this is going to be pretty awesome for downtown. Anthony Pacenti, Oneida County executive, is on talking about the budget proposal by the governor. He'll explain the Nexus Center, the plans as to what's going on. This has been something that he brought up in his state of the county maybe a couple of years ago, right?
Yes. So I think he's going to want to get into the marijuana thing as well.
I'm sure he will, and we believe he is against that. Let's see, Anthony Brindisi, Congressman Brindisi. We hope to speak to him at some point. Are we anywhere on that? We're working on it. Because he was a group of Democrats, freshman Democrats, moderates, that met with the president yesterday. And they came out, Katko, Brindisi, they all came out saying, we feel like we made progress. And that is so different from when the president and Pelosi and Schumer met, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What else do I have today? There's so much. Hockey game was last night.
Oh, so somebody
they
gave
were
me
really
a tip.
good last night. So.
A potential county executive candidate may not be running for county executive anymore because the website has now changed from Gordon for County Executive 2019 to Gordon 2019.
So that would kind of lend some credence to Manaske, who has been predicting this all along, saying, I think it's a spoof. There's something weird about it. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm telling you, though, he has spoken.
He's running for something.
He has spoken with Republicans that he's told fellow Republicans that I've spoken with that he is running for county executive. But if the website is changed, he's playing little games.
Yeah.
as if, by the way, I want to make something very clear. What Dave Gordon is thinking now is that his relevance is so high that we're on his every word. I want to clear something up. No, you're a spectacle, man. I enjoy that crap. You entertain me. You have no credibility in my book. None. Your relevance in my book is zero. The most relevance you have is you gave Sandy DePerno a run for her money, but she did more to hurt her campaign than you did, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I just want to clear something up. I don't believe you're relevant. We're not following this because we think you're relevant. We're following this because it's more entertaining than an SNL bit. All right? I think you're funny, and I'm enjoying it. So I wanted to clear that up. I think it's important. Because I don't want them going out thinking, I am so relevant. They're on my every word. They're paying so much attention to me, they can't wait until I say something different. They're now even noticing that I've changed the photo on my website. Only because you're funny, man. Only because you're funny. You don't have a chance in hell at winning, but you could make it interesting. And that I just kind of enjoy.
Yeah. I think it just changed. Dave Gordon for radio host 2019.
Okay, good. Well, there might be an opening soon. Nagel is in this morning. We'll talk to Brandon Lang, his picks for the weekend. I can't wait to get his take on the Syracuse-Duke game. And if he tells me that, and you never know, at a 17-point spread, he might have taken Syracuse.
He might have.
You know, I mean, that's that kind of lures people in. 17 points. What else? Oh, Alexa now has a newscaster voice. Did you hear this? For reading the news. So now you can actually go to. As a matter of fact, you can actually say, "Hey Alexa, play WIBX" or something like that. I guess you have to set it up. It has to be set up first. Yeah. I didn't realize that. Anyway. Then Alexa would go in and grab a story off our website and read it, and it would be read in the fashion of a newscaster.
Today's bride really wants to make her wedding her own, said Lisa Gooder, executive director of Brides. She doesn't want something that she's seen other people do. She wants something that can feel personal to her.
I got to tell you, it's fairly newscasty like.
Yeah. I think
I don't know what else to say.
There's still abrupt endings at the end of a sentence.
It's still not as smooth as our man Andrew.
That's
Thank
right.
God.
Who's really
And she better not get into sports.
Really smooth. This story about the former NFL player. Did you see this? There's a couple of pervert stories out there this morning that I wanted to get into. This one is a 48-year-old peeping Tom in Florida was busted on Monday morning by a father, a former NFL player. When I say busted by him, that means he busted up his face.
Yeah.
Really?
And that's exactly what he did. The 48-year-old was standing outside his daughter's window, the NFL player's daughter's window, and playing his very own musical instrument, if you know what I mean.
No way.
Oh, my God.
Disgusting and horrible. The father, they heard a noise. They looked out, and the father thought that somebody was trying to break in. He wasn't trying to break in. When the father realized what he was doing, we're talking about Tony Beckham. He's a former NFL player. He played with the Tennessee Titans. When he realized what was going on, he went and chased him, tackled the guy, which he has done in his career, by the way, beat the living daylights out of him, and then held him until the cops got there. Here is a report on this one.
Right here. He was right here. He was in between, like you see right here. He was all the way, he was inside of here. And I waited for a second, and then I looked again, and I'm looking, and then I see a white male, you know, he's standing by my window, and he's trying to get a better position. I couldn't believe it. I was like, is this for real? Like, I thought I was getting punked, you know, like, this is not happening to me. I called him, like, at the apartment over there, and we just had a good conversation. I'm sorry that it happened to me, you know. I'm sorry it happened for him, because he's never going to do that again on this side of town. If he was that brave to do it right here, I know this is not the first time he's done this before. Good prayer, and just knowing that, hey, my kids, my family is safe, and they're all right, and that guy's off the street.
I forget how old his daughter is, but she's a young girl.
Yeah,
and
he's 40, and he is a large man.
And you know what? Probably shouldn't have taken matters into his own hands.
15-year-old.
But
Well,
guess
Can we
what?
talk about that?
I'm good with it.
15-year-old daughter.
100%.
And I only say that because technically beating up someone, he had chased him and he beat him up. So technically he is probably breaking the law at this point.
Well, it does.
But again, it depends on the state he's in. This was in Georgia, I believe. I'm
doesn't-
sorry, this was in Florida. So Florida, it's like stand your ground, chase him down. That's the deal.
Yeah, I was gonna
Officer,
say-
he tripped. I don't know what he tripped and
Don't
rolled
know
and
the-
rolled.
The cops are like, cool, you got him good. And by the way, no matter what the law is, beat the daylights out of him. I'm okay with that.
Listen, I'm 100% with him. I thought that there was going to be a part of this story where you were going to say, and he's been charged with something because he did hawk a man down on his own and beat the crap out of him.
Yes.
But deservedly. So I
Well,
hope he's
if
not in
you-
any kind of trouble.
If you knew you were going to get arrested for it, you'd still do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would do the same thing. I want one more, and it's this story of the guy that's in jail. Now, keep in mind, he has not faced trial yet. He is innocent until proven guilty. This is out of the Albany area. Niskayuna. So the guy ends up was recently arrested for rape because he has, according to police, got an 11-year-old girl. An 11-year-old girl who, by the way, just had the child.
Wait a minute.
An 11-year-old girl pregnant. He impregnated an 11-year-old. So he's been charged with, what is the exact? Sexual assault, which would include raping the 11-year-old.
The DNA test post-birth
has
confirmed it is his child.
But the problem is he's saying that he didn't do it. He didn't have sex with the 11-year-old. That she somehow, and I'm going to say this in a careful way, was able to obtain his DNA after he committed a private act. He says she was able to obtain his DNA and impregnated herself. In order to what? What 11-year-old is going to put this in their head? It is awful. Now, he's innocent until proven guilty. But
do we know?
I have a hard time believing this ridiculous story that places the blame on an 11-year-old child. It's just terrible to think about.
I'm sorry that I'm even entertaining this because it does sound quite far-fetched. You say the 11-year-old just had the baby. Does she say she was?
Yeah, the child is in a safe place at this point.
And she
has
says she was
spoken and
assaulted by
cooperated
him.
with. That is correct. She's claiming
I didn't
that
know
she,
if it was
and it is disgusting alone to have a grown man challenging what this 11-year-old is saying. That alone is awful, but it's a terrible story. Read about it. Andrew has it in the news. It's awful. 6:32. Tanya J. Power is standing by. There's another big story here, and this could affect everyone at some point, some unfortunate point in their life. It's a new ruling by a court, and Tanya's on the line right now. Good morning, Tanya.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, this is a court ruling in California, and it could be, a pretty historical thing. Some really good reporting has been done by Forbes on this. Thomas Brewster is the reporter who has kind of delved into this. And here's the long and the short of what happened. Judge Candace Westmore, who is a magistrate judge in California, has ruled that American police officers can't force people to unlock a mobile phone with their face or their finger.
That's a big and. Listen, we've seen the phone being used in a lot of different cases here locally.
Yeah, here's kind of the backstory on what happened. These police officers wanted to do a search warrant for this property in Oakland, California. They filed a search warrant as part of an investigation into an extortion case where somebody had basically used Facebook to try and extort somebody. They told a victim that they were going to have to pay up or an embarrassing video of them was going to be released to the public. So they thought, okay, we have an idea of who's behind this, and they wanted to raid their property. So that is one of the reasons in the search warrant they basically said that they wanted to be able to, unlock, force unlock any devices that they found on the property. Well, the judge says that request is too broad. First of all, it's not limited to a particular person or a particular device. It was just, anything we find we're gonna look at. Because the law basically before this ruling has been that you can't force someone to give up their passcode to unlock a device.
Even with a judge's order?
yeah, it runs afoul of the Fifth Amendment because you'd incriminate yourself.
Well, and I find this interesting because in the case here, it's very interesting. It was a murder trial here, and the phone played a big role in this because it showed that at some point, whether it was the person who was ultimately found guilty, a female, or someone else on her phone, but at some point, someone searched, what was it, how to kill someone with, colchicine was the drug. So that's kind of very similar to going in and finding out what books someone has read in a library, and that has always been protected under the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah, and that's what this judge is basically saying, that it does the same thing, whether it's a passcode or a biometric like a fingerprint or a face or an iris, and they're basically saying, all of these things would force a suspect to divulge, what's inside their private phone, and you can't do that.
You know what I have to say though, Tanya, is oftentimes when I see these federal judges or these judges in California, I always get a little worried in that ends up being sometimes overturned by a higher court. You kind of wonder what will happen with this.
The other part of the thing that she made a point, and she said there are other ways that the government could get access to the data that they're looking for in this case, because they could, ask Facebook to provide messenger communications, and they've done that in previous cases. Facebook has handed over that sort of stuff. So she said there's another way around this, but otherwise, she's putting the same. Putting the passcode and the biometrics in the same category of what you
and that makes sense. I think I agree on both fronts. One, that is it's like saying if you have hidden something in a safe, the government comes in and says, you have to open the safe. No, it's their responsibility to get it open. But the other thing is, you're right. On Facebook does cooperate in these cases with their messenger system. So
and you are when you use Facebook, You give up your privacy. There's all that fine print that allows you to give up the privacy. Apple, however, is not cooperative.
Correct.
Apple is so uncooperative that if you lose your Apple ID,
it's a pain in the butt to get it back.
You might not ever get it back because Apple will never give you your password.
You have to buy a new phone.
My daughter had an iPod, and it was an old one, and she forgot the passcode, and it's still locked because even if it's your own property, they're not going to.
Because if you do the multiple tries and
it'll lock you out.
Exceed the limit.
You know what that phone is good for, though, Tanya, is put it in a frame, in a little one of those deep frames with a shadow box. It'd be a nice little piece of memorabilia because you're never going to open it. That's
a paperweight,
A paperweight would be awesome. That's right. All right, Tanya, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Okay.
Someday Tanya's daughter's going to wake up and she's going to go, 4486, I just remembered it. Oh, my gosh. The battery's dead.
Sorry, I smashed your phone recently.
I decided to throw it instead of my actual phone.
I was following that Asian girl on Netflix, and she said if it doesn't give you any joy, get rid of it. If you don't recognize that, you will. I can't even know I don't even know the woman's name. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
No. She was on. She's sweeping the news. She's like
she's
a declutter
all over
person.
the news, all over the news, and my wife is into her.
Oh boy.
So it's what we're watching. 6:38.
Your honey-do list is growing, isn't it?
Oh yeah. and this is more of a honey-do. You want to throw that out list?
Yeah.
I want to tell you on this. This is still confusing. I think if you don't know what this Nexus Center is, because the name doesn't really tell you what it is. Yeah. But this is a multi-floor. I believe it's 3 floors. I could be wrong. And it'll include soccer, indoor soccer, lacrosse, and I believe hockey, a hockey rink as well. So the thought is, and I'm going to tell you something, I think there's money in this. This could be a thriving downtown business because it's youth sports. Every parent thinks their kid is like, I don't want to say every, but there are so many that travel all over the region, all over the Northeast, at least in our case, to bring their kids to baseball camps, to hockey, lacrosse, and soccer camps because they feel like their kid's going to be a pro. And even if not, it's still awesome to have your kid involved in these travel teams. That's what will be coming here. So it'll bring a lot of people to the area where they'll play here, they'll eat here, in some cases spend the night for tournaments. I think this is going to be a huge, huge success downtown.
Yes, the perfect comparison you can make to it is the Cooperstown Dreams Park,
which would be baseball, and it's not indoors, but they have multiple fields.
And people from Hawaii, California, all over the place.
If you've not driven to the south of Cooperstown, which this is a part of Cooperstown, but you go down where that Dream Park is, it's turned into its own little community down there. There are hotels that have popped up. There used to be nothing down there, and now it's completely developed. It's pretty interesting. Youth sports. It's a pretty big business today. All right. Speaking of big business, the weather. It's big business for Rachel Witter, and right now we are finally taking a look at the first step forward that the National Weather Service has made. They have issued a winter storm watch, and here to fill us in on what's going to happen between now and Sunday night is Chief Meteorologist at Eyewitness News, Rachel Witter. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning. Yeah, everything is kind of coming together for this storm, and what's kind of shocking is the models for the last few days have been so consistent, and I'm very confident in how the storm is going to play out as far as track goes and what that means for us. But now I'm kind of it's almost shocking because this never happens. So it's like a perfect forecast. So.
I was just
there's excitement in the
I
voice.
was just yesterday speaking to Robin Monjo of River Hills Properties, who says she's a weather junkie. She follows the weather, and I said, I got to tell you, this Rachel Witter is pretty accurate. Well, how many inches is she calling for? Said Robin, and I said, well, Rachel's very, very conservative when it comes to throwing out these numbers. She's very, very careful about that. And now, today, you come on the air and say you're confident and you're going for it.
I know. This is one of the first storms in my career here that I'm like, all right, yeah, I know what's going to happen. And I kind of had a pretty good idea last night just with everything coming together. But I say that, and if there is a shift, all of it
anything can happen, right?
Yeah, nothing. So,
but as of right now, what do you see?
As of right now, the way that this storm moves, that puts us right in the bullseye of the heaviest snow that will come out of the storm for anywhere. So, I would say that most areas are going to get at least a foot if this stays on track, and this is going to be over like a 24-hour period. So that's a pretty good snowstorm, comparatively speaking to, what we've gotten this year. I mean, it's no March snowstorm from a couple of years ago, but it is going to put down, a good amount of snow starting Saturday night, and it's going to go pretty much all day Sunday into maybe as late as Monday morning. But I think by then it should be coming to a close. But then there's a big thing with this that's, I think, being overlooked, too, is this storm system's going to bring a dangerous cold Sunday night into Monday. So on top of the fresh snow we're going to get, highs Monday will probably not even get out of single digits, and wind chills probably won't get above 0 all day. So,
can I announce a little breaking news? Schools have already closed on Monday.
That's fake news, Bill.
It's true. They've already closed.
It's like they knew. It's like,
it's Martin Luther King Day, by the way.
A snowstorm was going to happen that day.
That's right. Well, it's Martin Luther King Day. They're already closed.
Yeah,
so
right.
there you go.
Stop doing that, Bill. Sure enough.
I know. I already knew it.
So, again, a wasted snowstorm for these kids. But, you save a snow day. But it is that cold, which means, correct me if I'm wrong, this snow is going to blow around.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think it'll be a huge issue at first just because it is going to be wet, heavy snow to start. But with it being that cold and dropping so fast, that kind of sucks the moisture out of the snow itself, like the snowflakes. So it'll become a lot less dense over time as the storm plays out. So blowing, drifting is definitely going to be an issue. But I think as it stands right now, a foot minimum for everywhere in central New York. And typically with snowstorms like this, too, there's these bands of snow within the storm itself that are super heavy. And I think some of those are actually going to set up across our area somewhere. So it's easily we could be looking at a couple feet in some of those. Those areas are the ones that get 2-3 inches per hour, and not just, I think we could easily get an inch per hour in the duration of the storm. So
this is a biggie.
It'll be a good one.
And we've been spoiled, let's be honest, since November or October, whenever that spell of wintertime really hit. We really haven't had much in terms of winter, but here we go. It seems like this one is going to be a doozy. All right, we'll check in a little later to see how this is tracking. Rachel, thanks so much. You have a wonderful day. All right. Rachel Witter is the chief meteorologist at Eyewitness News. So she's saying somewhere between a foot and maybe a couple of feet, depending on how this all plays out. That's how it's tracking right now. It is now officially from the National Weather Service a winter storm watch. Bill in New Hartford, the quick question, and then I'm getting the eye that we have to break here because it's been a while. Bill in New Hartford on Nexus. What's up there, William?
I think it's a great idea about this center down there, but I did a quick 5-minute survey. I like, where is everyone going to park?
Who'd you survey, by the way?
Myself.
Self? Where's everyone going to park? I don't know. Are you somewhat confident? Very confident?
No, not.
Well, you have I would assume that they're going to have to build some ground parking there as well. Yeah. There will be a parking garage across the street. Ultimately, that'll be multi-use for the hospital and for the odd.
I mean,
that's a good question.
I think a lot of people though can park where they park for Comets games. It's that
right. Those lots will be. But what if there's a game going on? And a Comets game going on and a tournament happening at the Nexus Center? That's a good question. I'll throw that at Tony Pacini this morning.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Bill. By the way, Pacini will be on at 7:38, somewhere like that, after the free money question, which, by the way, today is a Thursday. Hobika's in this morning, by the way. And the free money question this morning is worth $500. Pretty big. Michael, I think Hobika, when he comes in this morning, especially seeing he's coming in because that woman won $500 in cash on the Christmas Eve show. I think Joe should wear that ugly sweater in. Says Michael. It'd be a great distraction. Actually, Michael says he should wear it into court. It'd be a great distraction for the judge.
The woman who won, Amy, said, "Can I wear that sweater when I come in?" But she won't be in this morning. But she actually had said to me, "I'll wear the sweater if you want."
Jeff says, I've not heard talked about in this whole downtown redevelopment and the Nexus deal is a walkway over Oriskany Boulevard.
I actually did bring that up.
If they're going to rely on parking across Oriskany Street for events, what about some sort of a safe, secure, enclosed walkway that goes right over Oriskany Boulevard? I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah, so
which we'll pose to Tony Pacini later this morning.
Had mentioned that previously, but it was also right about the time that what were they calling it? The $1 million pedestrian walkway over the arterial, the monstrosity or whatever they were calling it, was going on, and there was a lot of controversy.
And that does get used. I mean, I see people walking over that.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is they really need two of them because as you get down by, is it Noyes Street, whichever the street is down there, that people are still crossing right there. And sometimes, I got to tell you, at nighttime and, it gets dark at 4:20, 4:15 now, although we are moving in the right direction. It might be after 4:30 now. But, somebody be dressed in like a dark coat or something, you can't even see them as they're getting ready to cross.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to give the Daily Sentinel, the Rome Sentinel, an award this morning for Headline of the Week, clever Headline of the Week. It goes to the Daily Sentinel. Their headline on the governor's speech the other day in terms of marijuana. I have it right here, Davey. I stole it from you. The headline says, Cuomo lights pot debate in speech. I think that was pretty clever.
That is good, yeah.
A little credit for that. What else do I have that I have to get into? Meghan Markle visited an animal welfare charity in London yesterday, and when she was greeting the volunteers, an older Jamaican lady said, "And you're a fat lady." She meant it as a compliment since Meghan is 6 months pregnant, and Meghan handled it pretty well. She laughed and said, "I'll take it. Here we go."
Hi, hello. Very nice to meet you. You too, lovely lady. Very good. God always bless you. Thank you. You're welcome all the time. And you're a fat lady. I'll take it.
Yeah, I think for the Jamaican, though, that in translation meant you're pregnant.
Yeah. That's the excuse I'm going with.
Hang on.
Let me tell you something. I hear so often, wow, you really are short. You're shorter than I thought. I love it. That makes me feel so good. Thank you, though. I get it
Disclaimer,
often.
don't try that at home. If you're like at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're a fat lady.
Yeah.
Don't try
No, it means you're pregnant. No, I'm not.
I did this earlier, and the Alexa has a newscaster voice. You can pick newscaster voice to read clippings and stuff from websites and that sort of thing. I now have the old versus the new. Maybe we'll be more impressed if we compare the two.
I doubt it, but let's try.
All right, here's the old. This is what it used to sound like.
Hopefully Karen's not
Today's
listening.
bride really wants to make her wedding her own, said Lisa Gooder, executive director of Brides. She doesn't want something that she's seen other people do.
That's the old one.
He wants something.
That's the
Actually,
old
I think
one.
the old
That
sounds
sounded
better
better,
than the
yeah.
new.
Here's the new one.
Today's bride really wants to make her wedding her own, said Lisa Gooder, executive director of Brides. She doesn't want something that she's seen other people do. She wants something that can
I
feel
like the old
personal
one.
to her.
You know, a lot of these, you'll Google something on YouTube, or you'll search on YouTube for a story, and if it's a big story, chances are someone has taken an auto read, a computer read, and they read the story and they put video up on it. I hate it when I come across those.
Because you're thinking it's the actual
Yeah.
audio on the news.
It's all done for clicks.
Yeah.
And they use the computer voice because they can get away with it. It's not stealing from anybody. Do you have to break?
I do.
All right, got a break. We'll come back. The only attorney on staff at Fox News.
At the White House.
At the White House.
White House press corps.
And we love having him on. And there's a lot happening right now. I want to play this this clip quickly from Chris Cuomo on CNN and Rudy Giuliani from last night, and then get John Decker's take on it. Listen to this.
False reporting is saying that nobody in the campaign had any contacts with Russia. False reporting is saying that there has been no suggestion of any kind of collusion between the campaign and any Russians. Because now you have Paul Manafort giving poll data that winds up leading to this coincidence.
Well, you just misstated my position. I never said there was no collusion between the campaign or between people in the campaign.
Yes,
I
you
have no idea if I have not. I said the President of the United States. There is not a single bit of evidence the President of the United States.
All right, that's big. So basically saying that I never said that there was no collusion. I said there was no collusion by the president. John Decker, right. That's a big switch. And I wonder if he's opening the door for someone like Manafort to have been colluding, and then Mueller has evidence that there was knowledge by the president of Manafort's actions, isn't he still implicating the president?
Well, I believe he is. I don't think he does much good, much help for the president when he does these television interviews, in this case with CNN.
Yeah.
Rudy Giuliani is someone who's well-respected as an attorney. He's not very good, to be quite honest, on television defending his client. And in his remarks last night on CNN, he obviously implicated, as you mentioned, Paul Manafort, by implication, perhaps even Michael Cohen and George Papadopoulos. These are three people that worked on the campaign, that worked for President Trump, and we know the president spoke to them often throughout the campaign. And so this is problematic. I don't know what Rudy Giuliani thought he was doing by, making that admission last night on CNN.
And it is, it's not the first time he's kind of changed and altered what he said. He certainly does one thing very well, and that is grab the headlines. The question is it by design to confuse everybody, or is he once again stepping in it? And I guess we won't know until we hear what the president has to say.
Well, that's true, and it'd be interesting to see the president's reaction, either in remarks that he makes or on Twitter.
Right.
But I think he has to distance himself from the remarks made by his attorney, Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah, boy, this was a. It seems like he stepped in it, and now with everything going on, you have at the same time William Barr and those hearings going on, and investigation, if you will, and of course the Mueller investigation, and how this kind of echoes Ken Starr as we go back in years. What are your thoughts on all of this and what's going on right now?
Well, I covered the impeachment of Bill Clinton. I'm very familiar with Ken Starr, and you may recall the Starr report was something that the entire American public could read, front, back, the whole thing, over 400 pages. And in this particular case, there's no guarantee that the American public, at the end of the day, when Mr. Mueller has done his investigation, will be able to actually read the Mueller report. Mm-hmm. And despite what Mr. Barr, who is the president's nominee for Attorney General, likely to be confirmed, said during his confirmation hearings, I don't think he gave any assurances that the American public, or Congress for that matter, will be able to read in full the Mueller report.
And that is, and when you think about it, I truly think the Clinton thing, and people admit it today, the Clinton impeachment was a mistake. It was an overreach. It was more personal than anything else. But that I just recently came across my USA Today that the entire Starr report, if you recall, was in USA Today, and you could just go to the newsstand and pick it up.
Absolutely, I obviously remember it quite well, and this is something that I think there's going to be a lot of growing public clamor to read the Mueller report. You mentioned the fact that some people believe that the impeachment of Bill Clinton was a mistake. One of the people out there who's saying it wasn't a mistake, by the way, is someone who just declared for the Democratic nomination for president, and that's your senator from New York State, who says that she believes that Bill Clinton should have been impeached. And, of course, we're talking about Christine Gillibrand, who just declared that she is running for president. But that being said, this is something we'll have a full picture of this in the months ahead. That's when I anticipate Mr. Mueller finishing his investigation.
Boy, I got to tell you, the day that Ken Starr's report came out, the day the O.J. trial verdict came out, all of these big events that have happened over the years that you think about where you were, I truly believe the Mueller investigation, when that is announced, is going to be one of those moments.
I agree with you, but, we could be let down. These things have happened before. It could be a lot of hype over nothing, but my sense is that Mr. Mueller, who I happen to actually bump into pretty often, we eat at the same restaurant. I won't tell you which one it is here in Washington, D.C.
He'd be there.
Because he'd get mobbed if that was the case, but I let him be. But I think Mr. Mueller is working diligently, he and his team, and at the end of the day, I think there's going to be some problems in terms of the report that he produces as it relates to the president.
As always, you're informative, John. We appreciate it. John Decker from Fox News.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much. I'm going to do a quick break and come right back with Dr. Rick Timms. A quick one. I want to talk about the governor's proposal, the budget, and all of that, and how it will affect our schools. It's up now. 2 days ago, the governor had his, what used to be called the State of the State, and now it's just his budget unveiling, his budget address, whatever he calls it.
One and the same.
But it does certainly affect a lot. There was a lot of talk in there about so many different issues, PowerPoint, the whole 9 yards. But education, some were quite disappointed in the numbers. There was an increase, but is it going to be enough? And is it even addressing the formula issue, which is a real problem? Dr. Rick Timms is a person that is an expert in the field of budgeting. In full disclosure, he is my father-in-law and drove my wife to teaching.
Oh, there you go.
Good morning. So what do you think? What are your thoughts after this budget was unveiled?
Well, what we see is really a lackluster improvement in terms of the aid sent to school districts. School districts rely heavily on an aid category known as the foundation aid formula. Something you talked about where the formula is actually trying to drive more money to low-wealth school districts. But parts of the formula are actually almost a decade or two old. For instance, there's a census section of the formula that deals with the 2000 census, 18-year-old data. There's regional cost differences that are approximately 12 years old. So the formula has got to be updated, upgraded, and improved, but it doesn't help the distribution when the money is about less than 2%, which is less than the inflation factor. So school districts are going to be scrambling unless the legislature can come forward with more money.
The issue has, and you've heard a lot of people, I might have been watching Spectrum the other night. And the thought is that we just keep having the same argument every year. Manaski's talked about it. For years, we're having the same argument. It's never addressed. So address that if you could. And then the other the other issue is I really kind of wonder what will happen now with a Democrat-controlled legislature and executive branch.
Well, you're correct. We keep talking about this foundation aid formula, and we have for at least 10 years now. It was a great invention when it was done in 2006-7. It was terrific. Obviously, it needed to be updated every year. It's kind of like if you're going to be paying employees, you've got to update your criteria every year. But the state has not. I think it's just too difficult for them. I don't think they really want to update it. At least the governor does not want to update it. He's come up with a new diversion saying that even when they send out this money to school districts, how the school districts distribute it among and between their buildings is inequitable. Of course, he provides no evidence for this claim, and it's disheartening. I mean, we are kind of losing patience here. So we're hopeful the legislature will come forward and help at least update and correct portions of this formula. Now, to your point about, well, we've got a Democratic Assembly and a Democratic Senate. Traditionally speaking, when the Democrats have been in charge, state aid has been much more robust than when Republicans have. For instance, in our area, we only have, I think, Assemblywoman Buttonshone, who's actually in the majority in this region. And so the Republicans technically have little or no power in the legislature and usually are very unable to help school districts. So this should be an interesting turn of events where the money is distributed across the state and throughout our entire region.
What do you say when people say, we've been throwing money at this problem and we haven't seen any improvement?
Well, I'm not so sure that's true. I believe there's been an academic improvement across the board in almost every single school district. The dilemma is the mandates just keep coming. They just keep coming and coming. More is required to be taught. More is required to be in the curriculum. More training is required. More items are required. For instance, now they're actually talking about cameras on school buses that actually are going to be on that little sign that comes out and says stop so they can catch people going past school buses. Well, great idea, but who's going to pay for it? So what happens is they keep piling on school districts. And there's another factor. The other factor is that much of our region in particular is not getting wealthier, it's getting poorer. Schools are finding kids are coming less prepared to school. We're finding out that poverty has increased. We're now expanding school. It used to be basically a K through 12 system. Now it's a pre through K system. We're looking at 3- and 4-year-olds. The buildings are old. Many of these buildings are from the 1940s and 50s. So there's a constant cost factor here, and they're adding to our fixed costs. So it is a dilemma.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, if the state would simply fund what they want everybody to do, we'd be better off. And the other thing, of course, is the governor does want to make the tax cap permanent. The, quote, 2% tax cap is and has never been actually a 2% tax cap. The percentage of increase is actually based on an 8-part formula. So if districts do not get a robust state aid increase, and they're obviously reluctant to increase taxes anymore, then they're going to be in a difficult situation financially.
One of the things the governor talked about in his address the other day was the census and how they sued the federal government over the citizenship question,
right,
which would dissuade those illegals from participating, those that maybe have been in the country for 20 years. And their kids have been born here. Here's a question. Obviously, that's important for a state like New York where there are a lot of immigrants. And what happens to a child who is basically undocumented or an illegal, or the parents are illegal immigrants? What do they go through a school system? How do schools handle that?
Any child that presents themselves to a school system of which they claim to be a resident, there's no proof to the contrary.
Yeah.
That school district must accept that child and accept responsibility for their total educational program, period. So the dilemma, of course, is, and I think we've got this in our region, whether they're naturalized citizens or natural-born citizens or whatever, immigrants of some legal status, the truth of it is they're entitled to school. They've got to go to school. Matter of fact, if they don't go to school, the big question is, okay, then what do you do with this child?
Yeah.
So they are probably better off in school. But when they're speaking multiple foreign languages over the entire student population, you need translators, you need things printed in different languages, and so on. Now, obviously, schools teach English, and they soon get there, but it is a process, just like anything else. And, of course, we're a nation of immigrants. I mean, I believe every person almost in the continent has to claim some ancestry that wasn't in the continent.
Yeah. We're talking to Dr. Rick Timms. He is the Executive Director of Statewide School Finance Consortium and President of RG Timms Incorporated. One final question I want to just address here locally. There's always the talk. We have County Executive Tony Picenti coming up in a second. He's always talking about consolidation. In some cases, consolidation maybe of municipalities and maybe consolidation of services. There was a big merger that happened a few years back down in the valley. It was like a God-blessed civil war down there. Ultimately, it ended up only 2 schools that had merged after 4 were proposed, but Ilion and Mohawk merged. So a few years has passed. How, based on your assessment, how is that going, and what has that meant for students down there in that district?
Well, it has gone spectacularly. I believe that school district has really come into its own. I think what they've done is really increase offerings for students that they never would have had before. I think the educational program is much more robust. Those students have, quote, merged in about 3 seconds. All programs, whether it's academic, interscholastic, or intramural co-curricular programs, have been enhanced. And part of it comes from the merger, but it's also, I got to say, it's the attitude of the Board of Education, the administration, and the community that have actually made this a success. But the key thing also has been is an influx of state aid during an early part of the merger.
Yeah.
But they have also come up with a plan to extend the use of that money so that they can improve the infrastructure of their buildings for a long period of time and enhance everything in those communities. So they've got a solid financial plan. They've got a student improvement in terms of academic improvement plan. They are coming along very nicely. But I've also got to add there's other types of consolidation. For instance, many of the school districts in this region share a tremendous number of activities, programs, academic, and so on, either by sharing teams or academics, for instance, through ABOCES, training and professional development through ABOCES, whereby what they do is there's a certain economy of scale and efficiency when they share these costs. And so that has gone a long way. So with the help of the BOCES, and in the case of Central Valley, a perfect example of a community that has done very well in a merger. Another one is Oppenheim-Ephrata St. Johnsville, just outside this region.
Yeah.
But the key thing is these are community schools, and therefore there's certain loyalties to the community, the actual community and its boundaries. And as you know, Bill, the boundaries of a school district are not linked in any way to other types of municipal boundaries. And these were created back in the 1950s and 60s and so on. But I've got to admit that school districts are trying to become more efficient and more effective with what they've got by sharing one way or another.
Dr. Rick Timms, we appreciate it as always, and hopefully we're not complaining about the same thing next year about
Let's
this
hope
time.
the legislature rises to the occasion.
All right, cool. Thank you. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Bye-bye.
Dr. Rick Timms. Coming up, our free money question of the day from the Hobica Law Firm. It's worth $500 this morning, and Joe is in. You think he's going to wear that ugly sweater he wore on the Christmas Eve show? Kind of wonder. Because it is tied to a $500 giveaway, and that's where we're at today. It's worth $500 this morning. We'll get to it coming up after the news. Also, County Executive Anthony Picenti, a lot to talk about. Included is the governor's budget proposal and Nexus. We'll get a little breakdown on all of that coming up here. Good morning, Joe Hobica.
Good morning, Bill.
It's $500 Thursday.
I know.
We're about to give somebody a shot at $500. And that person is in Rome, and his name is Paul. Good morning, Paul.
Morning, Bill.
Okay, here we go. You ready?
Morning, Paul.
Morning.
Okay. Hobica's
Very
here.
intimidating hello.
And checkbook in hand. I like that. Okay. You know who's in the news right now, who's, I think, really stepped in it when it comes to the president. And we'll see what the president tweets about him later today. But Rudy Giuliani all over the news. And so here's your question. Are you ready?
I hope so.
Who preceded Rudy Giuliani as mayor of New York City? Ready? Go.
David Dinkins.
You're going to go with David Dinkins. Are you sure? That's a $500 answer.
Well, I'll say Dinkins.
You're going to say Dinkins? It's Dinkins! Nice job there, Paul. Awesome job.
$1,000 Thursday, Bill.
You didn't even question it. You were right there. You sit tight, and Davey's going to hook you up, all right?
Awesome. Thank
All
you.
right. Great job. $500.
He was lucky that Joe was in studio this morning.
Hello, Joe Habaika.
Good morning, Bill.
It's been a while since we've had a big winner.
Yeah.
He didn't
hesitate.
Didn't even hesitate.
And he was confident.
So hang with us.
Reminds me of somebody I know.
Why?
Andrew.
Are you describing yourself as confident?
No.
Oh, okay. I want to talk briefly here with the county executive who was able to get through these phone lines this morning. Of course, we have the governor's budget. Did you see any of that, by the way?
A little bit.
And it did include money for Nexus. There's a lot happening right now. County Executive Anthony Pacenti, good morning.
Good morning. I thought when you said you had a caller from Rome, it was me, and I was, I was ready for that.
You would have known that, the answer to that one.
So I was a little disappointed on that. But...
Yeah, well, you were just one call away.
One call away.
Maybe we'll have a celebrity edition at some point.
I like that.
There you go. See? All right.
We have a question for you. If you get it correct, you get the Republican nomination to run for county executive.
Yeah.
All right. Here we
All right.
go. You ready?
Okay, go ahead.
Well, let's just get this out of the way. It is, and I don't think anyone knows, but I think somebody's playing with you. I really think, and maybe Habaika knows. You're the Republican chair. Is Dave Gordon really going to go down this road seriously and try to take on Tony Pacenti?
Well,
because he's changed his picture now.
We had a city meeting last night.
Okay,
and Tony came, and he addressed the committee, and then took questions for about 40 minutes. And after that performance, I think it wouldn't be a good idea if Dave decided to run, because I don't think he even comes close in terms of, quality of knowledge of issues. I just don't see it.
So, Tony, how many people asked you about the DMV? Were there any of those questions?
No, nobody. Actually, Dave was there. He didn't ask me.
He didn't.
No.
Because I got to tell you that Andrew has said, and by the way, I wanted to make it very clear, Joe, to Mr. Gordon, he feels like his relevance has just skyrocketed. And I want to make that clear, not in my eyes. I only pay attention because I find him to be kind of a funny bit. I do not think his relevance has raised to the level that we even care or think that there's any credibility, in my opinion.
I'm not going to comment on his credibility, but all I can say is in terms of knowledge, in terms of grasp of the issues, in terms of focus on what's what you should be focusing on when it comes to governing, and the county executive position is a huge responsibility. You basically have the lifeblood of, especially
right now with everything going on,
many people's health and safety in your hands. I just don't think a slogan based campaign for county executive is going to work.
And as Bill was going to say, what Bill was going to say was that he's now changed his website to just Gordon 2019.
Yeah, it doesn't say what he's running for.
Doesn't say what he's
you
running
might
for
have scared
anymore.
the hell out of him last night, Tony. I don't know.
Well,
no, I don't know. I don't think Tony was doing anything,
I get that.
focusing
I get
on
that.
him. But I just think that if Mr. Gordon wants to run for something, I don't think county executive is an option.
Fair enough, coming from the chairman. All right.
Of Utica.
Of Utica. County Executive Anthony Pacenti. Obviously, the governor laid out a budget, and it included the Nexus money, $22 million towards that project, and that's a big one.
It is, and we've been working with the governor's staff for a long time on that, and so I'm very grateful and that's in the budget. He has been. It's one area that the governor has been consistent. When we've worked on the auditorium and some other things with funding and the hospital, of course, and so in the economics, it's been a good relationship, and it continues. So we got to put the pieces together and make it work.
My father-in-law was Rick Timms was just on a little while ago talking about the budget in terms of education. He's not a big fan of the tax cap and says it is unfairly called a 2% tax cap because it's all based on a pretty progressive formula. And the fact that the state keeps handing down unfunded mandates, the tax cap actually strangles municipalities and school districts. What's your take on it?
Well, he's absolutely right, and in many ways, and especially with the governor's address the other day, the initiatives that have been put forth bring with it a lot of questions, obviously, but also a lot of money to get them done, and a lot of that money is always left on our backs. So you want to put in a permanent tax cap, yet you're instituting several other mandates or other ways of which local government's got to pick up the slack, and we have a lot of questions yet, and we haven't gotten answers, and it's only been a couple days, and I understand that, but we're trying to get some clarification. But at the same time, it's all well and good that the tax caps put in, and but when early voting, moving all the pieces up, no bail in in the justice system. Legalizing marijuana, which seems to be heading down that path. All of these things are going to have costs associated with them, and it's going to be very hard to say, okay, we could still do all these new things in addition to all the other things we've been doing without raising taxes above 2% or even getting close to that.
It would be, all these things are pie in the sky. They seem really, really nice, but again, they come unfunded. The Nexus, on the other hand, is something we've been waiting on. We were hoping it was in last year's budget. It wasn't. Right. It's here this year. This is something this will include youth sports. I really think this is going to be something that's going to bring people to the area. That's going to be a thriving business downtown.
Well, the return, I've been saying this the last couple of days and even before that, the return on investment, so to speak, on this is so significant because I've been asked the last couple of days why is government building this? Why isn't it built independently? But the return on investment of people, of business, of growth, of activity, that the facility can pay for itself in a very short time, and then multiply over the number of people that'll come, the hotel rooms, the restaurants, but also just the activity. We've seen that just in the 30 games at the Odd. You multiply that every weekend of the year, and that's not impossible. That is the possible, and that is the probable in terms of these tournament plays, especially when you have the capacity and the ability to have the anchor rink at the Odd, and then you have the ability to convert to soccer when necessary. And we've seen what that's done in a short time. Yeah. So we can really be on the map, and the access to it from the thruway really puts us in another great spot when this piece opens, because everything else is so remote in terms of whether it's in Marlborough, Mass, whether it's up in Canada, whether it's in Pennsylvania or Connecticut, and we really can be a big player in that field and open up doors for a lot of development.
I think that the focus on attracting outside dollars and people, plus providing opportunities for people in the locale. Yeah, I think it's a great it's a good focus.
Well, look what's happened in Cooperstown with baseball,
right?
Youth baseball.
But Bill, now is the time for you to put forth your idea to Tony again of the water park.
Tony, it was 15 years ago, 10 years ago. I don't know when it was, but I remember saying indoor water theme park and down in the harbor, and everybody laughed at me. But I'm telling you, the time is right.
It's a game changer, Tony. I gotta say, Bill's 100%
one thing at a time here. And
project.
Still got to pay for this one and work out those details.
He seems lukewarm on it.
Listen. If you build it, they will come.
They will come. Sure.
All right, I want to get something on the hospital. Sure. That has, and obviously we're moving forward, right? Everything's moving. Is there anything new to report?
No, I don't think anything new. I don't think anything just moving forward. I think we're getting through the secret process and all that goes with that. So that's
because there's an element of this. Someone had asked, why not build a walkway across Oriskany Boulevard from the future garage to the auditorium or to the Nexus Center? Any ideas for that? Has that been considered, safely being able to come across the street?
It hasn't been considered. I don't. I think depending on, I'm trying to look at picture the map in my head. It's kind of a little more off-centered from the odd, so I don't know if that's something that's entirely possible, or I guess we'll have to leave that for later on.
Yeah.
I know the first concern is to connect it to the hospital and in a way so that people can get in and out of there safely.
I want to just address this, and there's been talk, and I know people argue, and I know it's one of the issues that if you've ever been on a team that recruits new doctors to our hospitals, a lot of people, and I've spoken with some doctors who say this, disagree that a new hospital is going to bring in new doctors. Bring in people can be, I want to go and work at that new hospital. A part of this that's been somewhat ignored, and I'm surprised it hasn't been addressed, is the confidence level of the public. So you oftentimes hear people say, because let's be honest, there is a need for a new hospital in this area. St. E's, St. Luke's, both of these hospitals are, I don't want to say run down, but
you could say that. And
they're run down.
That wouldn't be wrong. I mean,
so when someone has to have a procedure done, the look of the hospital, the fact that it is run down, has to play a role in someone's decision. Do I have this done here, or do I go out of town? So for that confidence level, I do think there's the potential for a great deal of more revenue to come in if this area has a confidence level that is higher in the hospital.
Well, let's talk about the recruitment too. I mean, in terms of the young doctors, and look, our doctors are aging. It's just like other professions age, the same way we all do. And so you try to, how do you generate new activity? And so a new hospital absolutely does it. A new doctor doesn't, who has been in the top medical schools, trained on pretty much top equipment and been interning in different locales, is not going to look at an old rundown hospital to start his practice. It's just not, it's like any other profession. You want to go, especially when you're just starting out. You want to start out in the best. At least that's what you should do.
Yeah.
And so but the other piece of it is, so then you want to come to an area that's progressing as well, because you're going to establish roots. You're at least going to probably be there 5 to 10 years, if not more, and maybe for that lifetime if it works out. So what does the area look like? What are they doing there? What's it built? They just built a new hospital. I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, they're building a new hospital.
Yeah.
They've got activity around it that's going on. The downtown is starting to grow. There's apartments and downtown living and shops and different things and other amenities throughout the community that highlight it. Those are the things that attract people.
Yeah, right.
Just like any other job.
Mm-hmm.
It's what, the job is one thing, and clearly everybody looks at how they can provide for themselves, their family, et cetera. But then it's about, okay, when I get there, what am I going to do there? And what can I do? What do we do on the weekends? What do we do on the days off? What do we do on the time, for my family if I'm coming with a family?
So it all works.
What do the schools look? All of these pieces come together, and that's where I think people are not looking at the big picture.
I have 2 minutes.
Sure.
I want to go from medicinal to recreation, and you know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
You're against, it seems, against the legalization
of
recreational marijuana.
Philosophically, I've got a big problem with that, just from what, dealing with what we do each and every day. And a time when, and I keep saying this repeatedly, at a time when we're battling an opiate epidemic, and for the longest time through my education and the work I've done in government, I mean, marijuana has been a gateway drug. Always a gateway drug, always a gateway drug, and all of a sudden now it's not anymore. And I have a problem with that. Now, it looks like, though, that this train is leaving the station, and we're going to have to deal with this. So I'm a realist in that regard, too. I mean, I can oppose this, but I don't know that we have the ability to stop it with the governor and the two houses. But at the same time, I have serious concerns about how this is going to be dealt with because of the policing in terms of the management of this, in terms of how we treat and deal with the law enforcement aspect of it. What's the difference? What's the overall consequences? So I've got a lot of questions. We're starting to get some clarification, but the revenue doesn't. This is not where everybody says, well, it's and I've been accused of that too. Well, it's about revenue, and then he doesn't care how it gets done. It's not true. The revenue doesn't always solve problems. It sometimes creates more.
I want you to, if you can, sit tight. On the other side, I have a few other questions before we wrap up with you. County Executive Anthony Pacini, is on. Of course, a lot to talk about with the budget and what's happening right here with development. And we'll just a couple more questions I want to hit on when we come right back. Sit tight. County Executive Anthony Piceni on right now. I had a couple of other quick questions I wanted to squeeze in. Tony, good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm wondering, in light of this recent murder that occurred here, where this kid clearly is not stable enough to be considered to be able to consider for trial. What are you thinking when it comes to funding mental health and dealing with mental health here in the area, especially with federal and state cuts that have been really devastating on facilities here?
Well, there's no question, and I've been really at the forefront, I think, of mental health issues from when I took office, because we always talk about public health, but we forget that aspect of it. We continue to look at ways in which we can be more effective, and part of that problem is the number of beds and the availability of professionals to put these people into a facility or into a mental health bed that they need, instead of releasing them. So we've got to really work with our partners in the state and increase the number of beds. They've cut them over the years. This has been a pattern in state government for a number of years, which has caused problems, and then they add them, and then they cut them again, and we've got to stop that part of it. But we've also got to start, with more intensive evaluations, and not just pass them through the door as they come through a court system. This individual, to my knowledge, and what has been said, had been before a system before, and was released after showing signs. Now again, nobody can predict the extent to what someone is going to go with this type of behavior that took place. But at the same time, we've got to have a better evaluation system in place when there's mental health issues that come to the surface upon these things. So we're going to talk more about that over the next few weeks, and in my state of the county as we start dealing with some of this in an even more aggressive way than we have.
Where are you on sports betting? That's something that is.
I've supported that, and clearly, I think that that's something that we're in the casino business throughout the state and in different hubs, and clearly here that's an impact, and it helps. And I think that's another thing that brings people in, and especially when the other states have it's been approved by the courts to be legal across the country, and if we're going to be in that business, which we are, and then I believe that we should move quicker. We're starting to we're losing out a great deal, I think, in terms of what New Jersey has done in a short time, because they moved very quickly, and they need to get these regulations in place. And for us, that's we don't get revenue from that betting, but that's another attraction of what takes place in gaming, and there's.
Well, one would think the more people that come into the Turning Stone, the more they might use the slot machines. The more you'll.
It's all also the more more people that come, the more stays, the more activity. I'm for anything that can bring more people into our community and expand that.
One last, and then I'll let you go. The issue of we're looking at Senator Griffo now in the minority, Anthony Brindisi, who had really gained a great deal of clout in the Assembly, is now in Congress. The governor has a Democratic Senate and Assembly, and a very liberal proposal. What's it going to mean for us? And I don't see anybody to really stop him and to hold him back right now.
Unfortunately, I mean, I think for a proper discourse and a proper opposite view, but also for the way government's supposed to work in terms of cooperation and compromise, it doesn't look like there's going to be much. And the danger is that I've always seen, and I know Senator Griffo's talked about it. I'm more concerned the party stuff. I think that we can work through, although it is a very liberal agenda, without question, when you look at what's being done. my bigger concern is the geographical imbalance.
Yeah.
The power structure that is New York City, that continues to be, with every top state official in Long Island, for that matter, every top state official, the leaders of the houses of both bodies, as well as the majority of their members. That doesn't bode well. I mean, if you look at the speech, the one thing was, the governor all but said, the Republicans have put the state, behind, and now we're going to move it forward.
He
but
said
we got to work together.
Yes, first
So
100.
it's kind of crazy in that regard.
First 100 days, he's predicting he'll do more than has ever been done in the history of the legislature. So.
Right, but I think that but the concern is that you saw a lot about the MTA in that address. You saw a lot about voting and things that have been proposed in New York City and downstate, and that's a big concern, because I'm concerned about the number of dollars that are not going to flow upstate, but also the fact that it's hard to get a voice. I mean, Joe is doing what he can on the Senate side, but they're still a ways away. The Assembly has always been separated, and now we've got a freshman who I know she'll do a great job, but at the same time,
she's new.
What's the concern going to be? What's the level of interest going to be?
You got to be. Have you talked the Board of Elections down off the? Well, you know what I'm talking about. Their list of duties has just increased tenfold between now and not just June, but November.
Well, that, and we've been going into this, all of a sudden, if we're preparing now for a June primary for everybody instead of the September traditional one. Now, I'm in favor of one primary. I think having two has always been kind of crazy, but they could have come up with a better time than June or September, I think. But
or maybe a year in between before it actually was input.
Give it some time. Give everybody some time to ramp up and be able to do this. But everything's moving very fast, and that's the other issue too. That as we go, and that's a cost to local governments that we haven't been told that we're going to get reimbursed for as well. So there's a lot of, early voting, same day registration. Those things all come with a cost, and manpower, and it's going to be tough to accommodate that without resources.
County Executive Anthony Picenti, as always, we appreciate it. We'll get you in studio next time. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
We'll break and come back. Speed round with Joe Habaika, the city chair, who just gave away a $500 Thursday. We just had a winner.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how whenever you come in studio, I always find a way to make sure the question is doable.
I think it's hilarious.
And we get a winner, right?
No, I think it's really...
For your very eyes.
It's really funny.
It's 8:16. We'll come right back. We're taking care of the woman because of your ugly sweater. Michael has already texted in several times, very disappointed that you did not wear the ugly sweater today.
I will try to wear it again.
So the way the story went is I had told, and this, honestly, I'm going to be really honest with you. When I told you about the ugly sweater on our Christmas Eve show, we were doing it. And then it got nixed, and I forgot to tell you that it was off. So Joe came in with this disgustingly ugly sweater.
It was the holidays, and it was busy.
It was a beautiful sweater, actually. Yeah.
I know you were too busy, and you got caught up in everything, and you just forgot to tell me.
Anyway, that was part of the contest, and we had a winner on that as well. So it's been a technically pretty good day today for contesting.
It's great.
Nagel is in. We're going to get to that, but I want to talk about marijuana, the legalization of marijuana. We had a guy call in yesterday that created a bit of a stir because he said that he believes, and if you really read through history, that the laws, the anti-marijuana laws, tend to be racist and target minorities, and that's where it began. And that, what do you think?
Was he a millennial?
No, he's a teacher. He's actually.
I don't
want to say.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. My thought on it is, on the one side, if I'm defending somebody, for example, in family court, I tend to say that I minimize it.
Yeah. I think judges do too today.
They do not minimize it.
Really?
No.
I've witnessed it.
Well,
And listen, I'm in court often. You know,
it all depends. So. You know, it all depends on, I guess, which who the parties are and all that. But generally,
I was in 15 years ago in family court, and it was brought up, and a judge said, "I didn't want to hear about marijuana."
There's still a focus on it.
Yeah,
you know, there's always an attempt to minimize it. I mean, I think it's very hard to determine if somebody is actually under the influence at the time, what they are, you know, it's in your bloodstream because it stays in there a long time. And then, you know, the question is, you know, did you test positive, high positive? Was it medium positive? Was it low positive? Did you not have it?
Could you have been somewhere where someone else was smoking and you tested?
You know, I mean, listen, I like to use it. I like to use any explanation I can, and I have used the secondhand smoke one. But, you know, I think the issue with it is that in some regards, again, the stuff that's illegal, so to speak, the stuff that is, you know, that you would buy from a drug dealer, you know, if the kids, it does turn into a gateway drug. I believe. I've had some experience with it, you know, and I think it does turn into a gateway drug. You kind of poo-poo it because everyone has smoked a joint or, you know, hit a bong hit or whatever.
Isn't it, though, about person by person? If there are some people that are just susceptible to.
If you have a proclivity for it, there's a possibility.
Right.
But I you know, the other thing is, I mean, and again, I just if you do not have a lot of ambition, if you are a generally low energy person,
a lazy yes,
there's you know, it's not something that's gonna.
It's not going to pick you up.
Going to like give you a little pep,
yeah,
and you're going to complete all your tasks and everything else. It's great for relaxation, but you know if you're sitting there trying to you have a task based.
You've never heard anyone say, "I've got so much to do today. I'm going to smoke a joint so I can get everything done."
Right, and I'm not. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe Nagel, you want to pipe in on that? Do you disagree a little bit? You'd have to take a Manaski's mic here. Okay. It, again, probably depends on the person, right?
Yeah, I feel that it gives you anxiety enough to get all your tests.
Oh, okay.
Well, it all...
Gotta get this done,
I will say that it does make the Uniform Commercial Code very clear. But other than that, I'm not sure.
I have heard people say that, I forgot who this was. Well, I wouldn't say their name anyway. But that that for that person, smoking marijuana makes them creates anxiety and almost a bit of paranoia.
Well, yeah,
and they have a different reaction to it.
There's some truth to it. I think everyone reacts to it differently. Your body chemistry.
You see it in medicines. I have to tell you, my son, if I gave my son Sudafed when he was younger, or he would be jumping off the walls. Another child, it wasn't Sudafed, it was Benadryl. My other kids would fall asleep with Benadryl.
Sure.
Yeah. So a lot of it does depend. But ultimately, though, aren't we at a point where you're seeing legalization across? It's coming. And we really won't know the effects on society for several years.
If they want to legalize it, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
If it's going to be used from a prescription standpoint, I do have some, friends that have been through some medical issues, and
that
it's
and that's legal already.
Yes, and it's helped them, and I think that's good. I'm not sure about the CBD thing or whatever. I have no idea whether that actually works or there's some kind of placebo effect.
Is that the oil which doesn't
the oil that doesn't
make you high? So
is that right?
Yeah, it's a non-THC. The effects you get from CBD aren't the same.
Yeah, CBD is the medical,
part of the plant,
the healing, the pain relief element of marijuana, where THC is the high, where you get stoned.
And listen, a lot of people say alcohol, actually, when you look at the list of dangerous, addictive drugs. Are you ready? Number 1 is heroin. Number 2 is alcohol, according to the CDC.
I put the third one in there, which is bowling now.
Bowling is very, very difficult. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Finding a ball, too.
What the heck is wrong with you?
Yeah,
we're having a serious conversation here.
No, I look, Bill, I
love your lead-in every time I come in.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm always leading you to
what
something.
We should do is drink now.
Yes. All right. So, Nagel, pull one of those microphones. Andrew, I hate it when you do that because, all right, I don't know whose mic's what, but Nagel, good morning.
Good morning.
You brought in, what were you doing? Are you watching what he was doing over there? You're pouring out of a growler.
The minute I saw him starting to
unfreeze a beer.
Yeah.
Is it possible that it can have a normal taste now that you've done that?
Well,
I'm just asking.
I'm assuming yes.
Beer slush.
Yeah,
it's kind of a beer
slushy.
slush type thing. Yeah.
So I picked this up yesterday at Good Nature Brewing Company down in Hamilton, and I left it in my truck because I didn't know it was going to be 6 degrees.
Well, last night it was in the.
It is January.
It was like 30 last night, but we had a nosedive when it came to the temperature today.
So appropriately, this is called Snow Weasel.
Okay, well, it fits now. Yeah. And describe it's quite pungent, the smell.
Yeah, it's a nice IPA from those guys.
I've never had a beer with such
You've never had a slushy?
Not really. Not really, but it's quite good.
Yep.
It is quite good. Talk about this brewery in Hamilton.
So Carrie and Matt opened this brewery about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
And they are sole proprietors. They own not only a tap room in downtown Hamilton, but also a 20-barrel brew house just south of Colgate's campus. And it's a great little destination brewery.
Hamilton's a great town.
It is.
I really,
you got the Colgate Inn down there.
Yeah. A lot of cool
if
places
I ever feel
too.
fancy, that's where I try and take myself.
And it's a quick little drive. You drive down there. And my wife loves the Colgate bookstore, which is a really cool place. All right, good stuff, Nagel. I like this a lot. Available?
Just put in cans yesterday and available all over the place.
Okay, cool. 8:28, we'll come right back here. Lots to get into before we leave. We're going to talk to an MMA fighter, a local guy, and Brindisi. Congressman Brindisi, I don't know if you know this, Joe, was sitting with the president yesterday. And one of the group of moderate Democrats that came out saying, you know what, I think we might be able to put a deal together. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to get that past Nancy Pelosi, but might put a deal together. We'll get into it coming up. Good morning. It is Thursday, end of the week almost, as Andrew said. And we do have a pretty good-sized winter storm on the way. Does it hit us? Does it not? So far, Rachel Witter has some confidence that it is going to happen. The other day, it was a little stormy inside the White House. Republicans showed up. Democrats did not. Then these new freshman moderates like Anthony Brindisi were invited, and he took up the offer. And they met with the president yesterday. The plan to try to put the government back into full operation and cut a deal on border security. Congressman Anthony Brindisi is on right now, and we appreciate the hookup here this morning. Good morning, Anthony.
Sure. Good morning, Bill.
So, this was this your first time in the Oval Office? Where did you meet with the president? First of all,
we actually met in the Situation Room.
Oh, okay. That had to be your first time in the Situation Room, right?
I'm a regular there, Bill.
Yeah,
so
I figured.
Whenever there's a national emergency or an international emergency, I go there.
They call you for legal advice.
Yes.
What do you think, Anthony? So, in and of itself, that had to be a pretty awesome experience.
It was pretty awesome. It was kind of surreal because you walk in and you're in this room where it's the President Kennedy Situation Room. So it's the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's the capture and killing of Osama bin Laden. It's all those major events when our country goes to war that happen in that room, and it's pretty neat to be in there. And then the president walks in, the vice president walks in. Jared Kushner. It's very interesting.
Listen, when the president, no matter where you are philosophically or in terms of policy, when the president of the United States invites you, it's quite the honor. I think you take advantage just based out of respect for the country and for the position, and you did. So
I feel the same way.
Katko and you both seem to be saying the same thing, that there seemed to be some room for some discussion here.
Yeah, and like I said during the campaign, I want to work with the president. I'm not here to just obstruct. If there's areas where we can compromise, I want to try and find that. And when I got the invitation to go, I said this would be a great opportunity. It was with a group of 7 Democrats. I think there was 8 or 9 Republicans, and we had been kind of talking as a group ourselves as to try and find a way forward here to end this shutdown and put some kind of a compromise on the table, dealing with border security and immigration. And we saw this as an opportunity to express to the president that we really need to reopen this government as soon as possible because, our safety is at risk, our economy is at risk, and we probably have a lot of agreement on border security within our group and immigration reform, but we have to get the government open so we can have a little bit of breathing room to start negotiating some of these terms.
How did he seem to react to that?
I think he shares our desire to get the government open. I think he wants some assurances from Democratic leadership that there will be a conversation about funding for a physical barrier along the southern border, and it was actually helpful to hear for me directly from the Homeland Security Director about their plans for that, not just a physical barrier, but other plans that they have for technology upgrades, things along those lines. And I think there's a misconception when people hear a wall. And he probably shouldn't use that term because I think it's different than that. It's not like a wall from one end of the border to the other. It's in certain locations a physical barrier where that makes sense. And I've said all along I could support that, but I think there's other things we have to do to compromise, such as DACA, other programs that have been hanging out there that we can try and tie into this to get a win for everybody here.
And ultimately, listen, I do think the problem he has is he continued to make this promise of a wall, one continuous wall on the southern border that would be paid for by the Mexicans during the campaign. Obviously, since then, there's been a lot of changes, and he's kind of conceded in some areas. But for everybody to come together, it only benefits the nation. We do have to solve that problem because drugs and it's not even necessarily bad people who are coming to murder our sons and daughters, but it's just about the security of the nation. I think it is important that we all work together.
And the point that I tried to stress too is that it is a southern border, but it is also our border crossings. It's our ports of entry. We have a lot of problems all over the place with things coming in, people or things coming into this country that perhaps should not be here. And we have to tighten up security all across our borders and our ports of entry because we want to make sure people are safe. If part of that includes a physical barrier, which is something he wants, I'm okay with that. But I also want to make sure that we have the right technology at our ports so shipping containers are being inspected properly. I want to make sure we have the right technology at our border crossings so tractor trailers coming across the border are inspected properly. I think everyone wants that, and it can be a part of a grand bargain, I think. And then maybe we could also throw in something like DACA, which is something folks on the Democratic side have talked about, and even the president has said he would support. But compromise is a good thing, and if we can find some avenue here to bring both sides together, I want to be a part of that.
Meanwhile, we have a guy in Georgia who's 20 years old. I don't know exactly how old he's, about 20 years old. Has self-radicalized and had plans to launch missiles into the White House. He was intercepted by the FBI yesterday and arrested. That's a homegrown problem. That didn't come across any border.
Correct. I mean, we have problems all over the place. It's like there's a lot of holes in the boat, and you're trying to plug every hole you can, but some are going to slip by, and you just got to do your best to try and make sure that you're covering all these bases. And that's part of why we have to get the government up and running, because you have many people who are on the front line of our nation's national security who are not working or who are working without pay. And the longer that goes on, the less safe we are going to become. So we have to get the government open. It's important, not just federal workers that aren't being paid. There are so many programs out there that people are relying on. Farmers in our area are relying on that we need to get up and running again, because this is going to start to have an impact on our economy the longer this thing goes.
Do you feel, after your meeting with the president, just to go back to this for one more second, he's willing to negotiate, budge, give in on some of the things you talked about, DACA and other things?
Yes, I do.
Interesting.
And do you feel that you could that collectively you guys could put a deal together that Nancy Pelosi would say yes to?
I hope so. I think there has to be some kind of a signal from both sides that they're willing to compromise.
Yeah.
That's kind of the first step, is that there's going to be some acknowledgement that there's a compromise or a willingness to compromise on some of the issues that each side wants, and then we can put a framework together to try and bring this thing to a close.
All right. I have one more. Do you have anything you want to ask from a constituent, from a constituency standpoint? My final question, Anthony, is inside the White House, which cable company do they use? Is it Spectrum? Because
they have it in Florida.
Trucks out there or anything, but
you didn't see anything. All right.
Isn't it? They have Kremlin Vision or something.
Kremlin Vision.
I did make sure to shut my cell phone off before I walked into the building.
That was smart. Very, very smart. All right. Well, it sounds like quite a day and some progress. I got to tell you, you've been there for how long? You're making some news. You have not gone in quietly, which I think is a good thing.
Well, I just, like I said, I want to try and work with both sides. There are good people on both sides of the aisle. There's some people who don't want to do anything on both sides of the aisle. Yeah. But where I can find some common ground, that's why the people sent me to Washington.
Fair enough. Anthony Brindisi, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Oh, Nagel has a question.
Was it Wendy's and McDonald's and KFC?
Did they? What did you have for lunch?
All we had was coffee and tea. That was all that was served.
All right. Fair enough. Okay. All right, and that might have been made by the First Lady. That's what I was hearing. That Melania could cook up some muffins or something. Salads. Make some salads for you guys.
Delicious tea.
All right, good stuff. All right, Anthony, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
I did thank the president for coming to Utica, though. I did mention that.
You did. Somebody said.
Did you? That's funny.
Somebody had somebody. So talk about that conversation just for a little bit.
Well, there was a series of introductions. We all went around the room to introduce ourselves, say where we're from. And the person before me is from Staten Island, New Democrat. And the president said, "Oh yeah, that was a tough race that you had." And he congratulated my colleague Max Rose, who's from Staten Island, on his win. And he gets to me and he says, "Where are you from?" And I said, "New York's 22nd district. It's the Utica, Binghamton area, upstate New York." And he said, "Oh, that was a tough one too." And I said, "Well, I wanted to thank you, Mr. President, because you did come to Utica, and it was an honor to have you there. You were the first president to visit our city since Harry Truman, and it's always an honor to have a president come to our city."
Very nice.
He probably loved that. He probably loved that.
Wow. and his reaction was a smile. What'd you get?
I prefer not to say.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, I think that's wise. All right. Man. Very, very interesting. I'll be calling you later to find out. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Anthony Brindisi. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Congressman Anthony Brindisi. Wow, making some news. We'll break. We have an MMA fighter, local guy, that's going to be fighting coming up at WIBX. Our meteorologist from Eyewitness News, Rachel Witter, claiming she's pretty confident at this point if the storm continues on this track, somewhere between a foot to feet of snow, where some areas will get some real dense snow over the course of that 24-hour period. And she's feeling that we're going to get hit pretty well. This will be a pretty decent-sized storm. She says not like the March storm of last year, but a decent storm, as Manaski checks out his reaction to the beer. It does have a little kick to it.
It does. Yeah. Give me a little shiver.
On the line right now is Josh Rickey. Josh is from Whitesboro. He's an MMA fighter. We saw him fight out at the Turning Stone Resort and Casino when the MMA action, I forget which one, was out in the event center. Good morning, Josh. How are you?
Good. How are you? How you guys doing?
Good. You have a fight coming up that's going to be in Lincoln, Rhode Island at a casino out there. And it's CES MMA. It's going to be streamed on, it's going to be live streamed. You'll be able to get it. I don't think we can get it on TV, but you can live stream it. This is coming up on January, am I correct, 19th?
Yep, January 19th. You can live stream it on UFCFightPass.com. And, usually it's like $10 a month, but sometimes they give you like a free month to try it out.
Cool.
So it'd be pretty cool.
All right, tell us who you're fighting. And
he's fighting a guy who was around for quite a while in UFC, right?
I'm sorry?
The guy you're fighting, he was he in the UFC for quite some time? Is that right?
Yes, yeah. He had a few fights in the UFC, fought a lot in Japan. Like he's a good name, and it's gonna be a big fight.
All right. So, okay. So what are you what's your weight class? What are you?
I fight 125.
125. All right.
Yep.
And so talk about this fight and what it means for you. How big this fight is for you.
To be honest, this fight's huge. I mean, I went over this guy, and man, I'm close, like real close to UFC. because he was like, to get in the UFC, got to be someone that was in the UFC or something similar to that. So man, I beat him, and then I have a lot of eyes on me, I think.
All right, what's your record right now, Josh?
4-1 as a pro.
Okay, 4-1 as a pro, and this is a big one. Again, it can be streamed. It'll happen on January 19th. Your time to go is going to be about what time? What time will we be able to see you?
So the live stream starts at 3 p.m., and I'll probably, I'll fight, about probably at 3 p.m. Anytime. I don't know exactly what time.
You never know, yeah.
But the card starts at 3 p.m., so I'll fight, sometime.
The fact that you're fighting a former UFC fighter, though, will probably move you up on the ticket just a little bit, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna be like in the middle of the card.
Yeah, cool.
Something like that.
So the other thing is to keep in mind here, if you're interested in watching this, these are afternoon fights. Typically, it's like a Saturday night show, but these are all going on in the afternoon.
Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
And again, in order, we'll put it up on the website how people can get the Fight Pass to be able to watch this stream if they want to. And as you said, they usually come up with a 1 month free, and then you can kind of commit to it or not. But in this case, we certainly want to see you fight. It's coming up just around the corner on Saturday. This Saturday. Are you out there yet, or you're heading out when?
I'm about to leave in pretty soon here. So I'll head out there because you gotta weigh in on Friday.
Yeah.
Like got cut all the weight, do all the stuff. So it's it takes a lot of time. So
okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks, man. We'll wish you the best. Maybe we'll talk to you on Monday.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for having me
Good
again.
luck, man.
Josh Rickey.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You'll be able to check him out online. We'll put a link on our website at WIBX950.com, or if you just so happen to be out there, he gets a good crowd that follows him. So there'll be a crowd that'll follow him out there to Lincoln, Rhode Island. I believe they used to do the Greyhound dog races out there in Lincoln. Got to go. Back tomorrow.